What is good, everybody? Hello, hello. It is Momentum Monday. We're going to talk today about maintaining an authentic self. Maintaining an authentic self. So this is really self-control, but it is so important because there is so much behind this that we don't often talk about. We're not taught these things. Perhaps you learn them by reading books or encountering great mentors, but these are things that are widely not discussed in the school or in the home, not even in a church environment, right? So you don't often learn these things, but they are radical in terms of the freedom that is created when following through with these practices that I'm going to share today. They also really hold up a mirror for how you're showing up in the world. And they let other people, including yourself, off the hook from a lot of things that we get involved in. We have so much what I call crazy making going on in our soul, which is our mind, our will, and our emotions, because we're attaching to things. We need things to be a certain way. In order to be happy, we give our power away, often subconsciously, not even knowing. So this is a deep word, but we're going to keep it simple. All right. So maintaining an authentic self, like I just shared, is all about self-control. It's embracing the freedom of self-control. It's saying that no matter how somebody shows up, that's not going to affect how I show up, right? I'm a powerful person. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to respond or not, right? Based on what is my most authentic expression. So there's got to be a vision of that. There's got to be values. There's got to be a mission or a vision in place that you can recognize, oh, yep, that's not in alignment with that. So I'm not going to react to this, or I'm not going to respond to this, right? Because my value is this. Without some sort of foundation of a vision, of a mission, of values, it's just so easy to give into the temptation to react and to choose anger and to choose a negative response, right? That is not sowing ultimately what we are about. That's not the best reflection of us, an authentic self. Another thing too, self-control helps us to stay present in the moment. A lot of times we're either stuck in the past ruminating on something in our head, or we are future tripping, or we're anxious, or we have some fear about the future. So we're constantly in our head trying to figure out the future, trying to plan in advance for that, thinking through worst case scenarios, thinking through other scenarios to just control or prevent those worst case scenarios from happening. And it can just be crazy, the amount of chaos that we actually steward every day. And we're not called here to steward chaos. Okay. So breaking this down, maintaining an authentic self is about self-control, and self-control equals freedom. Self-control equals freedom. Okay. A lot of times we probably learned discipline. We probably were punished for different things. So we grew to maybe not like responsibility, our ability to respond to life in healthy ways. Maybe we didn't like self-control because that sounded boring, but it actually protects us from a lot of things that just happen in the world. It helps us to keep our peace, and it helps us to actually show up and honor who we are, what we're about, and steward well what we've been given on a consistent basis. So it really is a big deal. And it's also what I will call being a powerful person. So if that sounds attractive to you, I'm going to give you a few things that you can sort of just poke at and see what's up, see what's happening for you as we build momentum and bring you into a new week. So the idea with Momentum Monday is to help you bring awareness, right, into your week, and to help you build the momentum that you want, to make right choices, to take inspired actions, right, so that you can embrace the flow of grace in your life rather than resistance and force and pressure and hustle and just really going upstream. You get to go downstream when you allow momentum to work with you. So I'm going to give you a couple of things, or a few things actually, to think through this week, okay? Or whenever you happen to watch the video. So the first thing is to recognize that we have different things that have happened in our life that have caused us to be domesticated, okay? We have certain behaviors that we learned were good, bad, right, wrong, and we formed beliefs around that, okay? And then after that, that probably built into an attachment where if it's not happening this way, then I'm going to be upset because that's not right, or that's wrong, or that's bad. Simple example. Okay, let's say there is a grandmother that teaches her grandson at an early age that he's not allowed to leave the table until he finishes his milk or until he finishes all the food on his plate, because if not, that would be wasteful. Okay, so now this grandson is growing up and he's finishing all the food on his plate, even when he's not hungry, because it would be a sin if he didn't do that, right? And then as he grows up, he continues that pattern. And when he sees other people not finishing the food on the plate, maybe he's judging them as being wasteful. Maybe he's making an assumption about who they are based on how he was domesticated, what he held on to, what he attached to. Okay. So super simple example, but you get the idea. We have many of these beliefs, these ideas of the way things should be in life, the way things have to be in life, whether that's religion, whether that's culture, whether it's family of origin, whether it's schooling and education. We grow up and we attach to these things. So we're domesticated. And then we also form habits or attachments rather around not only ideas, beliefs, opinions, but we do it with people and we do it with possessions. And when we have unhealthy attachments, we are giving our power away. Okay. And when we attach to something, we start to experience anxiety sometimes, because if this person doesn't show up in the way that we expect, then they let us down and that makes us uncomfortable, right? Or if this possession were to be taken from us and our identity was connected to that, then we don't know who we are without that. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's a career path, maybe it's a love that's no longer your home, whatever it might have been, relationship. But when these things shift, confused, process that because we really attached to that in a way that we weren't a full authentic self outside of it. Hopefully this is making sense. So number one, here's what you can do about it. That was just some context to break this down a bit. But number one, decide what ideas, beliefs, opinions you actually value and that work for you. Okay. So rather than saying, well, that's just how my mom always did it, or that's how my dad did it, or that's what you're supposed to do. Like, where did that belief come from? Is that actually what feels good for you? Is that actually what you believe? So something that's helpful, particularly if you're a believer, the word tells us to focus on whatsoever is lovely, pure, noble, praiseworthy, right? Whatsoever is true. So what is true for you? Is it true? That's what you could do with a belief. With a belief, with an idea, with an opinion, is it true? Is it true, right? Does that feel right? Because a lot of times beliefs, this is how it works scientifically, right? We have a belief and then we start to feel some kind of way about that belief, and then we're putting energy in motion. Emotion is energy that we're putting into motion, right? So we start to think a certain way, we start to feel something, and then we act or not because of that flow. So if I am thinking a thought that feels good, then I'm probably going to act out of inspiration. If I'm thinking a thought that doesn't feel good, I might procrastinate, I might vent, I might make excuses, I might murmur, I might complain, I might put it off, right? But then I might show up and not take right action either, right? So decide what beliefs work for you, okay? So in the example of this grandmother with a grandson, right? Totally random, but decide, maybe you had that belief in your life that, okay, I'm going to not throw this food away, but I'm going to package it up and like sprinkle it in meals throughout the week because I'm actually not hungry right now. So I'm not going to put my body in a state of discomfort unnecessarily, because I don't need that. And that's not going to help me function. That's not going to help me focus. That's not going to help me show up and really be who I need to be in this moment to complete this task, or to be, present with my kids or whatever, right? So decide what belief works for you. Do you have to finish your food before you leave the table? Particularly if you go to restaurants and they give you huge portions. Do you have to? Super simple, but a lot of times beliefs are operating under the surface. They're subconscious. We don't even question them, which is wild. We will be so busy about questioning how other people show up, particularly on social media, about questioning why other people think that or why they say that. But it is a huge mirror and an indicator to actually look at yourself. Look at yourself. And one of the best ways to do this is reading of the word. When you read the word of God, it actually is a mirror, right? God will show you quickly where things need to be cleaned up, where things aren't in alignment with him and his will. And you don't need anybody to call you out. Like just reading that, it's holding up a mirror, and Holy Spirit will work with you to indicate where adjustments can be made, right? So that's one way. If you are a believer and that works for you, but have some sort of way. Journaling is a great way to do that. I'm going to walk you through a process too where you can ask yourself some questions, but it is super important to get clear about what you believe. So some things that will help make this efficient for you is write down your vision again. Don't overthink it. Don't look through past notebooks. Write down today what your mission in this life is, literally. Then write down your top 5 values. What do you value? Do you value autonomy? Do you value connection? Do you value integrity? Do you value courage? Do you value inspiration and adventure? Like, what do you actually value? And then take a look at that. Are you living out your values, right? Do you have expectations of other people that you don't even hold yourself to that standard, right? See where anything is messy that could use some cleanup, because those ideas, those opinions, those beliefs actually don't work for you. But you've got to write them down. You can even make columns. That's another exercise or strategy you can do. Ideas that you believe around certain areas of your life, and just pick main areas. Maybe it's your career, yourself, your health, your relationships, your wealth. Just write down ideas that you believe, opinions that you believe, beliefs that you have, right? And then assess, like, are those what you ultimately believe? Are they what work for you? Are they what feel good? Because you are in charge of what you believe. That's not something that you can point blame to somebody else and say, you made me believe that. You made me feel that way. Other people are not that powerful. You think for yourself. You are the one that is feeling in your life, right? Other people can't feel for you. So choosing not to give them the power over what you think and how you feel and how you show up is massive. So that would be the first one. Decide what beliefs actually work for you. All right. The next one is check your attachments. And I've connected an exercise to this one, but connect or evaluate rather what you are connected to or what you are attached to. Are you attached to certain people? Are you attached to, this is building on the last one, ideas, opinions, possessions, right? Are you attached to a job? Are you attached to even certain behaviors? Like you have to do this or, right? We usually don't work well when we have should or have to behavior. We often rebel against that. That's just how we're wired. But when you can actually recognize that I have the power to choose what I show up and do, I can live intentionally and consciously. That's the whole thing here. When we are not conscious, when we don't live in a place of self-awareness, when we don't self-reflect and self-assess, we can make a mess really quickly. And we can go through the motions. And sure enough, we can even start drifting through life where we don't even think for ourselves anymore. We let people do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. Okay, and that's not a powerful position to be. Hopefully you recognize that. So check your attachments. And here is what I will walk through with that. I have just a couple of questions. This is probably one that you're going to want to pause and then write down these questions, but hopefully this will help you. Okay, so dun, 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 for any attachment. So you can think about whether this is for, anything in your life. It could be a person, a belief, your role, your body image, an idea, a position in the home, some other capacity in your life. Just think about anything that you're attached to, and you can ask these questions, okay? So the first one, and this is a journaling exercise. So you can either write down the questions and respond and record your voice, because sometimes hearing yourself answer is powerful, but you can also write them out on a notepad or something as well. So the first one, is this attachment affecting your relationships with other people in your life? Is this attachment affecting your relationships with other people in your life? So for example, I used to work in the recovery space. So a lot of times people would come to face any hurt, habit, or hang up that they became painfully aware was affecting their relationships. It was affecting their well-being. It was affecting their future. It was affecting their finances. So this could have been drugs or alcohol. This could have been a sexual addiction. This could have been, vain imaginations, or like these ruminating on past things that they just can't let go of. There's a spirit of unforgiveness operating in them. It could be, attachments to just workaholics, let's say. So they're so attached to work that they don't believe that they can stop or slow down, right? Or take a break. And that's affecting people in their life. Or maybe it's, they're just not taking care of themselves, whether that's working out, dieting, dieting in the sense of just managing your portions, managing what you're putting into your body, managing your sleep, managing your water intake, just not taking care of themselves, right? So is that attachment, right? Maybe it's just watching TV or watching an insane amount of news, or maybe it's being on social media for really no reason, out of boredom, right? Is it this attachment affecting your relationships with other people in your life? So just pay attention to that, because a lot of times people are affected, and some, if they are bold, if they are courageous, if they have their own level of self-awareness, bring that to you, but other people don't, right? But there are indicators that is affecting them. So recognize that. Next, is your attachment causing you to play it safe and not pursue other things that you really want? Okay, let me break that one down again. Is your attachment causing you to play it safe and not pursue other things that you really want? Okay, so I, in my college years, I think it became really apparent my sophomore year, and I really struggled with an eating disorder through college. And it was something that, there's so much research on why, eating disorders happen, and what in my unique life story triggered all of that for me. But it was something that really started to keep me from pursuing things that I didn't really want, right? I had an attachment to fear. I had an attachment to unhealthy control. I had an attachment to a lot of anxiety at the time. And I had an attachment to managing and controlling eating to the point of obsession, right? Which was very unhealthy. It was causing me to play it safe and not pursue, healthy community, and not pursue a lot of connection with people, and not pursue fearlessness, right? And what it really looks like to live unhindered, right? I was just in this space of like constantly doing and really trying to figure out who I was in my future, but I could not stop. I could not slow down, right? So it was a really, really interesting thing that I totally needed deliverance from. And it was something that really held me back, in the sense of it didn't allow me to be in the present moment. It allowed me to numb and to hide. With me? So that could be an example. Another one is, can you think of any times when you've altered your actions because of this item? Okay, so if I'm going to use that same example in college, let's see. I would monitor all of my behaviors. I would show up and do the things that I was committed to. I would, have this facade that I was okay when I was clearly not okay. I was even pursuing therapy at the time. I was getting help within reason. But the thing that I knew not to do, I couldn't stop doing. Literally, I was just like in this very altered state a lot of the time. And so that started to alter how I showed up. It made me want to be disconnected from people, made me want to isolate. It made me want to not be seen. So that was very, very difficult. And again, I didn't know who I was, but it was preventing me from finding out also, right? So for what that's worth, but think of times when you've altered your actions because of an attachment that you have. So that could even be, maybe you have a career that you really don't enjoy. And so because you have that, you're starting to show up in a negative way. You're starting to vent. You're starting to complain. You're starting to hang out with people that do the same, right? You just don't even recognize yourself anymore, because you used to be that inspired person. You used to be that dreamer and doer in the world. You used to be that person that was, really passionate and focused and, leading and just proud of that leadership, right? And now you're you're not waking up with that enthusiasm. You just feel so like heavy and negative. So it's changing how you think. It's changing how you feel. It's changing how you behave in the world and who you associate with. All right. And then how does this attachment, whatever attachment you can think of, and I just recommend doing this with anything that you recognize as an attachment. So the best way that you can think about that is anything that can be removed from your life. If it was, what would happen to you? And I'll get to that in a second, but just to help you recognize what an actual attachment is. Okay, so how does this attachment affect your personal freedom? This is great to do with relationships, actually. So if this attachment was no longer in your life, who would you be or what would happen? Okay, and then how does this attachment in your life affect your personal freedom? Does it support it? Does it encourage it? Does it enhance it? Like how does this attachment affect that? Okay, so a lot of things that we're attached to give us false freedom. They don't give us freedom at all, right? They help us live in this facade of control. They help us live in this, facade of like being perfect and having it all together. They help us live in this facade that things are okay to really buffer us from feeling and facing things that aren't okay. All right, and then do you want to keep this level of attachment or do you want to decrease it or even let it go? And this one is big because the choice is always yours about what you attach to. And you can choose to detach without ultimatums too. So I do want to hold that up. So if it is a relationship, for example, that you have an attachment to, you can choose to detach from things that don't need your energy and they don't need your attention. So for example, particularly if you are a believer, one of the best things to do when it comes to leadership, when it comes to mentoring, when it comes to the prophetic even, is calling out the gold in people. So you can be aware of their dirt. It's really easy to find dirt on people. Super easy, right? But a lot of times we're not looking at ourselves first. So we're judging and criticizing other people, which is really a reflection of ourselves, okay? So the objective with other people is not to call out their dirt, okay, but to call out their gold, to call out their greatness, and when necessary, discipline their heart, not the behavior, okay? And so I don't believe that you can do that apart from God, right? Because that is very supernatural work. Forgiveness is supernatural, repentance is supernatural. So a lot of that work is supernatural, but incredibly powerful when you can get that behavior is not always the issue, it's the root. And out of the abundance of the heart, that's where all the issues of life flow out of the heart, right? So that behavior is connected to a heart issue. So if you can discipline the heart, right? If you can speak and have a heart connection with somebody, that relationship is way, way, way different in terms of trust and safety and all of that. So think about that. When you are looking at an attachment, do you want to keep that level of attachment? Do you want to decrease it or even let it go? That choice is yours. But you can detach from thoughts that are unhealthy. You can detach from emotional reactions. You don't have to react that way. You can go feel and process your emotions for sure, right? There's a time and place for that, but you don't always have to dump them on people, right? And you're probably not going to get the best response when you do that. So the choice is yours if you're going to attach to that and let it go, right? Just let it run and have its course. Or are you going to detach from it and not give it your attention, right? Are you going to let it dissolve until you get peace again and then have a conversation when the time is right? Hopefully that's making sense. So as you do this exercise, like literally you got to do it for yourself in order to get the inspiration, in order to get the wisdom. But as you do it, like pick a person, belief, whatever it is, and answer these questions, okay? And then you will find, if you're like most people, that you have different levels of attachment with different things, okay? And just simply becoming aware of them is really important in terms of not letting it take your power or not letting it have such a grip or such a hold over you. And the minute it starts to lose that hold, right, anything that's not authentic is exposed, all right? And then you're able to actually live in the truth of who you are, which is greater than any attachment, any role, any idea, any belief that you have, okay? So you are not an idea, right? You are not one belief. You are not an attachment. You're so much greater than that. And so it gives you an opportunity when you do work like this inner work, to see what you're attached to that is causing you to be inauthentic in some way, and reflecting where you can take your power back and make some powerful shifts. Okay. So without awareness, this domestication that I mentioned and these attachments can blur our perception, and we start living in a fog. And I actually define a fog as fear, obligation, and guilt. So we're not authentic when we're in fear. We're not authentic when we feel obligated to do something. We should, or we have to do this. And now we're just annoyed because nobody likes to do anything they should or have to do. We just want to rebel against that. And then guilt, right? Guilt for how we've behaved, for how, we've showed up, for not showing up the way that we think we should, right? Or that we have to. And that weight of all of that stuff going on, we're not verbalizing that a lot of the times. We're not communicating that. We're not processing that. We're not working it out. So it's really, really powerful and incredibly freeing when that weight can be lifted from you and you don't have to walk in a fog anymore, or that limited perception anymore. So that is all number 2, is check your attachments, and you can see how deep that work is. And I will say to this is the work that is easiest not to do, but the work that is the most empowering and freeing for you to do. Okay. And you'll notice a shift in your relationships when you shift. Okay. Okay. Da-da-da. And then the last one, number 3, is choose to be powerful. Choose to be powerful. And I know that this sounds like common sense, but I have learned common sense is not so common. And being powerful is something that is open to interpretation. It's something that we all have different definitions for, like many things in life. And we don't have a lot of people modeling the way. There are people if you choose to see them, right? But if you're not powerful, you tend to find other not powerful people, powerless people, okay? So I'm going to speak to powerful people, because when you get a glimpse of it, when you understand it, when you can define it for yourself, then you can see it everywhere. It's kind of like, once you get something in your awareness, you see it everywhere. So like a car, like maybe you really want to buy a new car and you used to never see this car, and then you start seeing it everywhere, right? Similar with this kind of concept. When you start to have awareness and understanding around something, you see more and more opportunity to practice, okay? So choosing to be powerful is choosing to control yourself, okay? It's choosing to not blame others and point fingers at other people, not just dump all your perceptions and your emotions on people, not let how they show up, take your power away, or like just completely wreck your day. It's choosing to control yourself no matter what, right? You are entirely up to you. You don't need people to change for you to be you. You don't need the circumstance to be any different for you to choose how you're going to show up in this moment, okay? Powerful. All right, next one is, a powerful person is somebody that consciously and deliberately, like not living life by default, not living life just subconsciously, consciously and deliberately. So rather than just drifting through life and just seeing how it goes, right? You are a creator. So you are going to consciously and deliberately create the environment you want to live in. Okay? You don't have to accept all environments, right? You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to perfect all the things. You don't have to control everything, right? You consciously and deliberately create the environment you want to live in. First, that's with you. You've got to be entirely okay and accepting of you. If you are not, you will not be able to be okay or accept any other person in your life. It's just not going to happen, right? So you've got to be able to get into that place. For me personally, I couldn't do that until my relationship with God. I couldn't do that, right? Everything else was through lenses of perception, from attachments, from this domestication, right? So everything wasn't pure, okay? It's God, his light, his word that allows us to have a pure heart, that allows us to renew our mind. When we repent, right? We turn from faulty beliefs. We turn from messy, stinking thinking, right? We turn from all this emotional weight, right? Like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Like, it's important that I feel joyful. The joy of the Lord is my strength. So I'm going to choose joy, particularly when I don't feel it, because I decide what I want to feel. I focus on feeling good and what I want to feel versus on what I don't. I'm not going to just sit in what I don't, right? And when I have grief or when I have things come up, I will sit with it and I will process it, right? But I'm not going to live there. Okay. And I'm not going to lose hope about the future. So consciously and deliberately create the environment you want to live in. Be who you are on a consistent basis. So that's where it's important to know what your mission in life is, to know who you are outside of any of the attachments that you have. Who are you? If those things weren't in your life, who are you? Right? You were somebody before you were married. You were somebody before you were a homeowner. You were somebody before that job. You were somebody, right, before those kids. You were somebody. So who are you? If you can detach, right, from gripping and holding on to things for your identity, you can actually see who you are. So that is a really big deal, and be who you are on a consistent basis. So knowing your mission, knowing who you are, knowing what you're about, knowing what you value, that allows you to be a good decision maker. That allows you to live in, it allows you the opportunity to live in integrity with yourself, to keep promises with yourself. If you don't know what you value, if you don't have any standards, if you don't have boundaries, you're just going to be tossed to and fro, right? But once you can actually root and ground yourself in something, right, then you can actually be stable and supported, okay? And you can be who you are on a consistent basis, even if other people don't value what you value, even if other people show up in ways that are maybe not okay with you. That's not going to affect you. You're still going to be who you are on a consistent basis, okay? And then the last two things are, powerful people keep their love on, okay? So I'm not going to turn my love off because you didn't meet my mark, right? Like, I don't accept you. That was the last straw for me. Like, I'm going to just toss an ultimatum, or I'm going to block you, or whatever, right? I'm going to keep my love on no matter what. Now, I'm going to have boundaries with that, right? But you're not so important that I'm going to hate you. You're not so important that I'm going to resent you. You're not so big that you're going to affect me as a person, how I show up, how I choose to love, whether I keep that on or not, right? Like, you don't have power over those decisions, right? And then lastly is repent. Powerful people repent. Powerful people are not perfect people. Powerful people are not holier than thou. Powerful people are not prideful people, right? It's important to recognize that you still will be triggered in life. You still will encounter things that challenge you and stretch you and challenge your growth, right? Challenge you or trigger like your standards or your integrity or test you, right? How are you going to show up? You don't know a lot of the time until you're tested. You don't know these attitudes in your heart that you have until something comes along and you're like, ooh, like, I didn't know that I felt that way. I didn't know I thought that. Or like, where did that come from? That's not my belief. That doesn't feel good to me, right? So there's work involved as these things come up, but they don't have to be super intimidating. They don't have to weigh you down. They don't have to completely distract you or get you off course. When you can recognize them and do this work consistently, you're working with momentum, right? So repenting is literally turning from something that doesn't feel good. That's not the belief that you value, that is not the authentic self, right? Like, that doesn't represent you and who you are. Like, maybe in that season, that's you doing the best that you can, but now you know better, so you're going to do better. So you're going to release it. I'm not going to think that way anymore. I'm not going to keep feeling that way. I'm not going to keep behaving that way. I'm going to turn from it. I'm going to repent and turn from it and go this way instead. I'm not going to keep looking back. I'm not going to keep bringing it into my future. I'm going to forget the former things and focus solely on the moment, because that's where my power is in the present moment. So all of this work, being an authentic self, is a self that is present and a self that can show up fully to the moment. And when you don't feel like you can do that, it's a really great way when you choose to be an authentic self. You can choose self-control habits that you need in your life, right? You can list out the boundaries that you need for you to be stable and safe, a stable, safe, healthy human, whole human, apart from your distractions or your attachments. They're not always distractions. Sometimes they are. And then you can also choose consciously and deliberately how you're going to show up, even in the midst of challenges and things that don't feel good. You can still choose to represent yourself well and steward well what you've been given. And that is powerful, right? That is power in action. That's a self-controlled person in action. Can you imagine how much mess would be cleaned up if people were just more in control of themselves, right? Less focused on other people and how they want to control and fix them, but more controlled on themselves. And this is not guilt, shame, condemnation. This is not, hating yourself, by any means, but it's being self-aware. It's being self-reflective, and it's deciding consciously how I'm going to show up to the moment. And if I'm attached to things, then they become distractions and sometimes unhealthy attachments, right? Or if I'm overly thinking and ruminating on things all the time, something has gone wrong, right? If I keep feeling some kind of way, yet I stay there, that's still a choice. And so all of these things in action together help you maintain an authentic self, help you show up and take care of yourself so that you can truly keep your love on and love your neighbor as yourself. Okay. So not doing this inner work comes at a cost, but when you have awareness, you don't live from a impure or foggy, or the word says unholy perspective. You have a clear lens so that you can see things properly. You can understand emotion, right, in the moment, and not necessarily let that emotion have control of the moment. You can recognize it and feel it and then still make a choice, right? And then you can behave in ways that make you feel good, that represent your authentic self and what you present to the world. And then as you get really good at that, you'll start to have these really, I call them divine connections, but healthy connections. You'll be more aware of inspired actions. You'll see how different things come together, and you'll feel like you're in a flow, like you're walking by grace through faith. You're not forcing and hustling and pushing and controlling and manipulating, right? Like life can be easy for you, right? But it does require doing some really deep inner work on a consistent basis for you to be who you are. It doesn't just happen by default. By default, we drift. By default, we drift. We numb, we control, we force, right? We don't guard our tongue. We don't renew our minds. We don't take care of ourselves. We just start drifting. So this is a way to wake up and actually apply, right, some really powerful tools to help you be a powerful person. I hope it blessed you guys. If it did, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, copy this link, share it with a friend, highlight it too, maybe even email it to yourself, take a screenshot of it, something so that you remember to actually go back and answer these questions. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I want to encourage you to do that. I do inspired videos, so it's not always on a consistent schedule. So this is the best way to know when a new video comes out. And I believe that you don't come to these things at random. They're usually what you need to hear right in the moment that you need to hear it. So there is that. And then also, as far as connecting with me, you can go to julianapage.com. That's where course information is, books are, ways to work together with coaching and getting strategies for your personal life and where you are at. And just really allow you to move forward and be unstoppable in your pursuits. So you can go check that out there. And let's see, did I miss anything? I think that's all I have for you guys. All right, until next time, stay blessed.